The US government has launched a new investigation into the origin of COVID-19 to see if it could have come from a Chinese lab and if officials covered it up. Beijing has accused Washington of spreading conspiracy theories and fake news, saying it merely wants to distract the public from its own failure to contain the outbreak. Paolo Montecillo has more.
Once the epicenter of the pandemic, the U.S. is finally getting its coronavirus outbreak under control. And it's trying to get to the bottom of how the global health crisis began. President Joe Biden has ordered the intelligence community to redouble its efforts to determine the origin of COVID-19.
China has not been transparent. They need to do more. And so that's what we've been, I think, very vocal about these past several months, and we'll continue to do so.
Based on the information it's seen, the White House says the disease came either from an infected animal or was leaked from a laboratory. The World Health Organization has already said COVID-19 was likely of natural origin. But in a rare move, Republicans have thrown their support behind the Democratic government in calling for a new inquiry.
China has a history of lab accidents. This outbreak happened in a city that happened to be the home, coincidentally, of a lab which we know is involved in extensive research. And what they do is they take this naturally occurring virus and they manipulate it and they change it to make it infectious to humans.
Beijing has accused Washington of perpetuating a conspiracy theory, and it didn't miss the opportunity to do some finger-pointing of its own.
If the US really wants full transparency, then it should, like China did, invite the WHO experts to visit the US and investigate and open up Fort Detrick military base as early as possible, as well as all the biolabs the US has around the world.
He's referring to an accusation that gained traction on Weibo, China's version of Twitter, that COVID-19 was engineered on a US military base in the state of Maryland. The WHO says there's no evidence to support that theory and that the first coronavirus infection was undoubtedly recorded in China. It seems that if any answers are to be found, that's where they'll be. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Lots of questions there. Let's try to get some answers with Dr. Bharat Pankhania. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Exeter Business School. At the University of Exeter Medical School, and joins us from the city of Bath. Now, so what exactly have experts uncovered here? Do we have a smoking gun?
I don't think so. And I think politicians who don't understand science ought not to score points because it is favorable for their voting public. This is a very serious and important issue. What really should be said is we wish to find out how come a virus that normally lives amongst bats has managed to change, mutate, or reassort itself and now become human-to-human infectious virus, and therefore how can we prevent it? All the evidence seen by the WHO and other very learned people indicates that this is such a completely new virus that it is unlikely to have arisen from a lab.
Now, does the origin of the virus affect how we fight the pandemic?
Yes, it does, very much so, in that if you understand the origin and its transformation from being predominantly living amongst bats to suddenly wanting to live amongst humans, you can find the link of how it changed and how we, going forward, can prevent such things from happening. The prevention is much better than finding the cure afterwards. So for those purposes, it is important to understand the origin of the virus.
One of the criticisms against China is that it was not transparent about this pandemic at its outset. Do you think that that's a fair criticism, and do you think the world could have been spared from this pandemic if Chinese officials had acted sooner?
I don't think so. Once you have a virus that is circulating amongst people and it is infectious amongst people, it becomes very difficult to contain. What should have been done was prompt actions by other member countries of the WHO to put in a pandemic control plan, which was restrictions of movements, restrictions on transferability of infections, etc. It was those actions that took a little bit longer, which then resulted in the pandemic that we are now seeing.
And finally, we heard from Marco Rubio in that news report saying that Chinese labs are not safe. Do you think that that is a fair criticism?
I have no evidence personally that the Chinese labs are any less safe than any other lab. We've had accidents in labs historically in Russia, in China maybe, and in the United States. We had, remember, the white powder soon after the 9/11 incidents. Remember, the white powder was anthrax made in the United States of America. So we need to be careful about blaming other countries for creating viruses when we haven't got the evidence.
So, contrary to what we've been told, perhaps this report raising more questions than providing answers. Thank you so much, Dr. Bharat Pankhania, for your time for us.